Hi and welcome back. Today we're going to go through 5 quadratic equations that every student must know. So let's dig in. So let's try this first one. I've got x squared minus 6x plus 8. So this one's a nice quadratic equation because it's mono. There's no number in front of the x squared. So what I like to do is write out all the multiples of your constant, your last number. So let's write out all the multiples of 8. So to get 8, you can only do 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. And it needs to be positive 8, so we're going to put a plus over here. That means that either both of them have to be positive or both have to be negative, because that's the only way they would multiply to give you positive 8. And they need to add together to give you negative 6, which suggests they both need to be negative. And then we look at our factors, and the only ones that are going to give me negative 6 are going to be these two. And they would both have to be negative, hey? Because negative 2 plus negative 4 is negative 6. And negative 2 multiplied by negative 4 gives me positive 8. So we can put a tick next to that, knowing those are our two factors. And then all you need to do is write out your brackets, x squared, so x in both of these, and then write out your two factors. X take 2, x take 4, and that equals to 0. Boom, that's the first one done. Well done. And if the question asks you to go further and to solve this, then you could just say, using the null factor, that either the first factor equals to 0 or the second factor equals to 0. And then you could rearrange those, so either x equals 2 or x equals to 4. So be careful, check if the question asks you to factorize. If it does, you just leave it in this. If it asks you to solve, then you have to go this step further and make sure you solve. Nice, well done. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, question 2. This one's a bit trickier. This is a non-mono. What that means is basically in front of your x squared term, there's not a 1. There's a number greater than 1. So there's a 2 in this case. So it's a bit trickier to factorize and solve this. You have to do a few extra steps. The first step is you need to multiply these two first. Okay, so don't forget to do that. Whenever there's a number here, you have to multiply it by that. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So let's write that on the side over here. And then we write out all our factors. So we could have 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. And they need to multiply to give you negative 8. That implies that one of the factors has to be negative. And they need to add together to give me positive 7. So we're going to say, it has to be these two factors. And let's work out the sign. Well, it would have to be neg 1 and positive 8. Why? Because neg 1 times positive 8 gives me that negative 8. And neg 1 plus positive 8 gives me that 7. Perfect. Okay, now what we need to do is actually replace that 7x with these two factors. So we're going to rewrite this equation. So we haven't done anything to this 2x squared. So we still write it. And instead of writing that positive 7, I want you to write these two factors that I've got in a box. So the first factor is negative 1, and make sure you put an x. And the second factor is positive 8, and make sure you put an x. And we haven't done anything to that negative 4, so we must write that again. Okay, the fun begins here. Now we factorize just this. And what's common to that? Only x. So we could remove x out as a factor. And you're left with 2x minus 1. And if you factorize these two, you could actually remove positive 2 as a factor. In fact, you could go further. You could remove positive 4 as a factor, hey? And that will leave you with 2x minus 1 if you factorize that. And then you can see, 2x minus 1 is a factor for both of these. So we can remove that out. And you're left with x plus 4. And that's how you factorize that. So there's a few steps involved in that. Let me quickly re-emphasize. So step 1 was you multiply that value by that value, which gives me that. Write out all the factors of them. Then choose the ones that would add together to give me that middle value. Replace that middle value with those two factors and then factorize by grouping. And remember, if we need to solve, you need to go one step further. Then we need to use the null factor. And we're going to say that either 2x minus 1 equals to 0 or x plus 4 equals to 0. If you rearrange this, you bring the 1 across, so 2x equals to 1, x equals to half, so that's one of your solutions. If you rearrange that other one, x just equals to negative 4. So good work if you're able to follow that and understand that through. Okay, next, let's try this one. This one's a bit easier. X squared minus 4x minus 5 equals to 0. So let's write out all the factors of 5, and the only factors of 5 are actually just 1 and 5. They need to multiply to give you neg 5 and add together to give me neg 4. So that one's very easy. You know, neg 5 plus 1. And so we could just write out my factors. So we've got positive 1 or minus 5 equals to 0. And then we could say that either x plus 1 equals to 0 or x take 5 equals to 0. And if you rearrange this, you get x equals neg 1 or x equals to 5. Nice. Okay, how about this one? This one's an interesting one. So you've got 3x squared minus 12 equals to 0. So step 1 is, what can we do? Well, we could actually take out 3 as a factor, right? So we're going to take out 3 as a factor, and you're left with x squared take 4 equals to 0. Because if you divide 3x squared by 3, you're left with x squared. If you divide neg 12 by 3, you're left with 4. And then you have over here difference, you have two square numbers, so you could do difference of two squares. So what does that mean? That basically means you could split that part further. So we could still have this 3 outside brackets, and because we got difference of two squares, you square root x squared, which gives me x, square root 4, which gives me 2. And difference of two squares just means you put plus minus. And that's how you fully factorize that. And then if it asked you to solve that, you would say that either this factor equals to 0 or that factor equals to 0. So either x minus 2 equals to 0 or x plus 2 equals to 0. And if you rearrange that, you get x equals to 2 or x equals to negative 2. Tick, tick. Well done. That one was a nice fun one. Okay, our last one, x squared plus 5x plus 6. So write out all the factors of positive 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So this one's an interesting one because at first glance, it looks like both of these could potentially give me 5, right? So this one's a bit of a tricky one. So because we need to multiply to give me positive 6, that means that either both of them have to be positive or both of them have to be negative. Because only when the signs are the same, when you multiply them, you'll get positive. So out of those, if they're both positive, those two would be the only ones that add up to give you 5. Not these two, because if you add these up, you would get 7. And you can't subtract them because they both have to either be positive or both negative. So we know it's going to be these two. So hopefully that makes sense, because 2 plus 3 gives me that 5. Positive 2 times positive 3 gives me that 6. So we could just factorize this, write out our two brackets, and write out my two factors. And that equals to 0. And then we could just say either x plus 2 equals to 0 or x plus 3 equals to 0. And if you could rearrange that, x equals neg 2 or x equals negative 3. Beautiful. Well, hopefully you're feeling good. You understand quadratics. You understand how to factorize them and now also how to solve them. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye for now.